All right, today, sorry for the audio issues. For some reason, it's not working on Instagram. It's okay. We're just going to keep on going without it. So today we got a deal on 1865 15th Street, 15 Court, Northwest Winter Haven, Florida, 33881. This is a property 1 hour east of Tampa, a 4-bed, 2-bath, almost 2,000 square feet. There are 3 loans in place on this property. So when you're buying a property subject to, it means that you're taking over the existing loan subject to existing financing. So the deed gets transferred to your name or your LLC's name. However, the mortgage remains in the seller's name in that situation. So based off of that, what we're going to do is we're going to assume that the purchase price is going to be this balance of the remaining loan plus the balance of the solar loan plus some amount to the cash to seller, because they don't disclose that for some reason. I don't know why. I like a little bit more details. And then there's also another amount for the seller finance piece. And let me see if I can just calculate what that is. So if it's $300 per month times 120 months, that's 36 grand. Makes sense, because then your balloon at the end of it in 10 years is going to be 22 grand. Okay, so it's going to be $36,000 plus 286,896.86, 289,896.86, plus the loan balance of the solar, 46,645.27, plus I'm just going to assume $20,000 to the seller and $10,000 for a time, so plus $20,000. So I'm going to put that number as my amount for the purchase price, 392,542.13. Okay. Here I'm doing 286,896.86, plugging in all the property here. All right. So now that I got that piece, I was just trying to think outside to my head. So let's first things first, let's first look at a property. Looked it up on Redfin really quick. Let's see. There's 2 garages here. There's a pool in the back. Property looks like it's been recently renovated. So at 4-bed, 2-bath, I'm going to assume there's not much that needs to be renovated for the property, especially for flooring. I'm going to set aside a little bit of money for painting just in case there's any blemishes, but that's all I'm going to assume that I need to get this property ready. So if I go to my rehab calculator, I'm just going to zero out everything else. No termite issues, no water heater issues, because if it's already a short-term rental, I'm going to assume that everything is operating as intended. So I'm going to zero everything out from the last time I underwrote a deal yesterday. And I'll put 1999 square feet, assuming $3 a square foot to paint the place. I'll keep aside some money to clean up the yard, but everything else can be empty. So that equals a total rehab number that I'm setting aside just in case of about $7,800. Good enough. So my renovation furnishing is going to be $7,800. I'm going to delete that to make sure that ties to that. $392. Cool. Let's take a quick look at a street view. Looks like an okay neighborhood. I'm not seeing any big issues. Looks pretty quiet. I'm not seeing any like homes that are blown up or boarded up or anything like that. Yeah. No issues here. Then I want to check tophap.com, tophap.com. And I usually come in here and I look for signs of crime. So when I go to tophap.com, I can plug in the address, go to the neighborhood section, and then boom, I'll get a crime index score. 121, slightly above national average, but it's not like it's troubling. I think once it gets to like the 130, 140, start to get a little sketched out, and it might become one of those neighborhoods where it's really street by street. So for me, this is okay for the most part. Let me see if it's in the flood zone. Not in the flood zone, even though you got some lakes right next to it, but probably because it's so inland. Yeah, there we go. Lakeland. I believe Lakeland has a lot of farms in that area, so Winter Haven is just a little bit further east of it. Okay, good to know. All right, next thing we want to know is we have to check and make sure what the market rents are. And for this property, what you want to do is first get the county. When you search for a county on Redfin, it'll tell you that this property is in Polk County, PLK. So the next thing you want to do is if you Google HUD FMR, HUD space FMR, you can go to the HUD's website, click on access to small area FMRs, look up FY 2024 FMRs, click on Florida, and then find your county. In this case, it's Polk County. And now all of a sudden you have the fair market rents by zip code by bedroom count 33881. 33881. And boom, you're going to see that the fair market rents for this property is $19.50. FMR $19.50. It's a 4-bed, 33881, $19.50. So the next thing you want to do is get the market rents. I get the market rents by going to affordablehousing.com, going to the owner section, going to the market rent estimator, and then plug in the address. Once I plug in the address, you can click on get estimate. And this just gives you a very rough range. So right here, it says that, boom, within a 1.2 mile radius, I'm focusing on the number here on the far right, 1.82 mile radius for 23 units, the average market rent is $2,037. 2037. 1.82, boom. And the reason I'm plugging in all these numbers right now is because my partners are very familiar with my underwriting process. So this is why I capture all these details, because they already know where the research came from. And it saves them a bunch of time whenever they're doing their own due diligence. 2132. Okay. All right. Awesome. So now here's the problem. When you determine what the market rents are, or the rents that you can achieve for a property, typically you want to take the lower of the two when you compare the FMR against the market rents. In this scenario, you see that the FMR, or what I would typically call as a rent ceiling, is $19.50. Compare that to $2,037. So I'm going to assume that I can get $19.50, which is the maximum rent for this property. All right. Next things is that I'm going to plug in all these numbers. So this was a 2, 3. Here, let me put these numbers here on the far right, so you guys can see on Instagram, for those of you who are following their screen to vertical, so it's a little bit hard to see. 286,896.86. Interest rate is 5%. I'm going to assume this property was bought in 2021. Just making up some numbers here. The date doesn't really matter. Why? Because all I care about is what is my total monthly payment, because that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. So I'm going to assume that, there's also this other amount. So the seller finance note is going to be $36,000, which we calculated earlier. 0% interest, 30 years. I'm going to assume that there is a balloon in that's right. Went $300 monthly payments to the seller for 10 years. So you want this to be $300. 9%. All I'm trying to do is make sure the monthly payments are. I'm not trying to get the right interest rate, because there seems to be a very different loan arrangement on this property. That's okay. 58 grand. Whoops, my bad. $58,000. 2, 3, 5. Roughly $300. Yeah, 4.75. That's roughly about right. All right. Next thing we want to do is get the property tax amount. So what I would assume is that my PITI is 2166.88 plus 253 minus the principal minus the interest of the first loan. Why? Because I want to get and back into my taxes and insurance number, but I'm also going to add my 253 for solar, so that I'm essentially adding to my property tax number because of the additional solar amount. So that allows me to essentially add on to this amount and then back into the tax and insurance after subtracting my existing loan's principal interest payment. So $879. I'm gonna add in another $35 because usually the insurance for a property that is a rental property is typically higher than what the existing loan is. So I'm just being a little bit more conservative here. I'm set aside 10% for maintenance every single month, 10% for property management, and 3% for vacancy. And this is how equivalent to not a deal. Right now, this property is a negative 1255.94. So it's not a deal for affordable housing. That means it's not a deal for short-term rentals. I don't know, but I'm not underwriting it for short-term rentals today because that is not my goal and not my exit strategy. And I'm no longer investing in Airbnbs. I have a couple of properties; they do well, but that's just not my passion project. So 392. And if you are able to look at any of my past underwriting, you see that it's going to be important for you to figure out how do you come up with the scenarios to make this a deal. For me, because this is a really creative deal, it doesn't make any sense because I'm assuming if you buy this conventionally, you're going to have a higher interest rate than what the existing loan is, which is higher than 5 and 4 3/4. So it's likely not a deal. Usually, if you get enough experience at underwriting deals, you'll probably quickly figure out like, hey, if my FMR is 1950 and my PITI is already over that amount of number, just with that in the solar, chances are you're not going to cash flow. And unless you're in an area where you're okay not cash flowing in exchange for appreciation, then that might be your exit strategy. But for a lot of folks, they're looking for some type of cash flow so that there is some yield and there's some room in place so that, well, yeah, you can make all your money on appreciation, but it's also very risky if there is no cash flow to pay off the existing debt service. So it's just something for you all to know. And this is why we always talk about analyzing other deals. So if you do want to analyze this for a short-term rental, what I would recommend is just check out my video on how to analyze short-term rentals, which is this video right here on youtube.com/@Kent_HE. This is the same analysis process that I use for short-term rentals. This one is also the one that got featured on the Business Insider. So check it out, and we'll be back here again tomorrow. Again, this was not a solicitation for any investments. It's not investment advice. I'm simply doing what I do every single day as part of my daily process. So I hope you all can analyze the deal with me every single day, put it on your own YouTube channel, and get the practice to ensure yourself that you have an undeniable track history of analyzing deals every single day, consistently. And more importantly, when your partners ask you, why do you think this is a deal? You can go point them to your own YouTube channel and then figure out and tell them, like, this is a deal because I looked at 100 other deals and they were all not deals until I came across this one. So hopefully this is good. Thank you so much for being part of the affordable housing investment community. Thank you so much for your time today. We'll be back here again tomorrow.